like to thank you all for, and also of course the conference delegates, everyone. And I would like to thank you all for inviting myself, as well as behalf of ICANN. I would really like to thank for inviting us to this wonderful conference. And first of all, we'd like to mention that it's a great opportunity for us to be here and to represent ICANN at this cybersecurity summit. So now, when I was given the speech, I was thinking, okay, what should I be talking and what's relevant to Nepal? So, and also actually that should be something relevant that we should also be focusing as well as organization. So this is where I thought maybe it would be good to talk about DNS security. Now, in terms of DNS, I'm not sure how many of you are really involved into the domain name system, especially the management of DNS and so on. But I think as users, I'm very sure that all of you use DNS on a daily basis, every time. Whether you access internet, whether you do browsing, whether you do, whether you send any emails, and whether you use any mobile apps. We do all this all the time, right? So in all these instances, you are using DNS because you need to get to various servers. And so this is where, as users, we all use DNS on a very regular basis. So it is very important for us to know exactly what's DNS, and especially focusing from a security point of view, we should know how to secure the domain name system or the DNS. Not only for users, but also, of course, for the people who manage infrastructure. And say, for example, the ISPs, the internet service providers, the domain name registries, registrars, and so on. So for every of these entities, the DNS security plays a very important role. So from that perspective, I will be actually talking about the domain name system security, and also the abuse handling of DNS. So that's the focus of my talk. Now, I should also very briefly mention you about the organization that I represent. I don't know whether, is it possible to see the title? All right, okay, good. So it's a long acronym. When I was, when the MC was introducing myself, she mentioned that I represent ICANN. And ICANN is an acronym, of course, that stands for, it's a long acronym that stands for Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. So over there, you see these double N names and numbers. Obviously, the names, what we refer, is all about domain names. And then numbers, that's number resources like IP addresses, for example, the autonomous system numbers, in case if you are a service provider or network operator, you should know more about these AS numbers or autonomous system numbers. And also, there are things called protocol parameters. These are also number resources as well. So, so ICANN plays a role in coordinating these resources. Within ICANN, there is a function. Currently, it is called as PTI, which stands for Public Technical Identifiers. Formerly, also this was called as IANA, Internet Assigned Numbers Authority. So these are, these functions exist within the ICANN structure. So what we do really as an organization, as ICANN, we make sure that these internet identifiers, these unique internet identifiers are properly coordinated, and also to ensure the uniqueness of these internet identifiers. Because any device that gets connected to the internet, as we all know, any device that gets connected to the internet needs to have an identity, right? So if you talk about the IP address, that's an identity. If you talk about domain name, that's an identity as well, because these should be unique identifiers. So it is very important from a security point of view that we should make sure that the uniqueness of these identifiers are preserved, right? Because otherwise, if, say for example, if you type a domain name, right? If you type a website, and if you go to a wrong place, that's a big security issue. So we have to make sure if you type a certain domain name, you should get there, not anywhere else, right? So this is why actually, in terms of unique identifiers, or preserving that uniqueness is very important from a security point of view in the internet. So as an organization, we work with several parties, several organizations, in terms of coordinating these internet identifiers, and also, as I mentioned before, the PTI, the IANA function, keep the central registry of these resources and distribute, say for example, if it is IP addresses, these IP addresses are distributed through the Regional Internet Registry System, or RIR system. Okay, so that's a very quick intro of the relevance in terms of what ICANN does in this context. Now, getting into the security, stability, and resiliency, this is something that we always focus, right? Especially talking about the internet. The question to ask for us is that how much trust actually we put in the internet. Actually, how much trust we have of various resources that we access, or the servers that we visit, and so on, or the clients that we go to. And nowadays, especially with the evolution of mobile phones and the IoT devices, in fact, we used to call IoT, but now it's pretty much getting Internet of Everything now, because around us, everything is getting an identifier. So very soon, we are going to have billions and billions, already we have, but very soon, billions and billions of devices going to be connected all around us, right? So this is where actually the security plays a very important role, and also actually we should, given that we are using these identifiers on a very frequent basis. I also told you that every time you open a certain, say a web page, or when you open mobile apps, or do browsing and so on, we do so much of these DNS queries, or the talking to various servers, clients, and various other hosts and so on. It is very important for us to actually stay focused on the security aspects of DNS. All right, now try to, in case if anyone is new to DNS, I will try to give a very quick, brief picture. What is DNS, right, in the first place? We all know, of course, to type a domain name, and then we get the web page into our browser. That's all fine. But how the DNS is all managed, it is structured as a tree hierarchy. DNS is actually a distributed database, right? So you can call it as a distributed hierarchical database. So this is how it is. It's a hierarchical distributed, like a tree structure. Top of this hierarchy, what we have is something called the root, right? So usually root is represented by a dot. So that's why you see a dot over the top of the hierarchy. And that's what we call the root. So root itself is a database. So sometimes we call this root database as the root zone. So if you've heard about something called root zone, that's where we refer to the root database. Now, the root database, again, there are lots of practices and lots of guidelines there in terms of management of the root zone or the root database. So, as I mentioned to you before, ICANN, IANA, together with the community, we are involved in managing and coordinating this root zone or the database as well. Now, if you really think about the context, what's inside this root zone, they are all references to the top level domains. So for example, like .np in Nepal's case, right? So .np is the country code top level domain of Nepal, which is also actually a top level domain. So .np is delegated by the root, and in Nepal, the country code is .np. And similarly, every country in the world, they all have two-letter country code. Say, for example, India, we have .in, and Singapore, we have .sg, and so on. So every country has got a two-letter country code delegated. Then we have generic top-level domains. So these generic top-level domains existed since very early days of internet, .com, .net, and so on. So these are all generic top-level domains. Now these spaces have grown over the years because internet has been there for now a few decades. So over these few decades, these top-level domains also have really grown up quite a lot. The generic ones I'm talking about. And nowadays, we have things like the new generic top-level domain. So here, I've shown something like .coffee, for example. So this is a very generic top-level domain. So you can see it's the same level as .com or .np and so on. The last one over there, you see there are some characters, the ASCII characters, but actually these are what we call internationalized domain names, or IDNs. So there are top-level domains exist now. Currently close to about 60 of these. These are local language scripts, right? So for example, if you take Devanagari script, you can have a domain name in Devanagari script. So for example, in different countries, in different regions, and so on, people write domain, different scripts. So we should be able to even get domain names in those scripts as well. So currently, that is available.